We have more nuclear weapons than any other country.
Wrong. Russia, not the US, has the largest number of nuclear weapons in the world.
Announced that they were going to be doing a test.
Wrong. Russia tested 2 new weapons capable of carrying nuclear warheads. More on that in just a bit.
And China's testing them too, you just don't know about it.
Wrong again. There is no evidence of a Chinese nuclear test since 1996. What China is doing, though, is testing nuclear-capable missiles. In other words, much of what US President Donald Trump claims is, to borrow from him, fake news. Trump is just being himself when he sounds alarmist. But seriously, is Trump dragging the world into a new arms race? South Korea, 30th October. Trump is minutes away from his much-anticipated meeting with President Xi Jinping of China. This is to be their first in-person meeting in 6 years and the first in President Trump's second term in office. President Trump gets on board the helicopter that will fly him from Gyeongju to Busan for the meeting. He is still in the air when he drops a post on his Truth Social account and drops a bombshell that literally sucks the air out of political discourse and veers it in an unexpected direction altogether. The post reads, "I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons." It's not a slip of the tongue. He means it. He tells journalists on his flight back to the US, and I quote him here, "We don't do testing. We have halted it many years ago, but with others doing testing, I think it's appropriate that we do also," unquote. President Trump talks about it a third time after he returns home to his estate in Florida. Here he is talking to CBS News. Take a listen.
We have enough nuclear weapons to blow up the world 150 times. Russia has a lot of nuclear weapons, and China will have a lot. They have some, they have quite a bit. But
so why
do
we need to test our nuclear weapons?
Well, because you have to see how they work. You know, you do have to. And the reason I'm saying testing is because Russia announced that they were going to be doing a test. If you notice, North Korea is testing constantly. Other countries are testing. We're the only country that doesn't test, and I don't want to be the only country that doesn't test.
Are you saying that after more than 30 years, the United States is going to start detonating nuclear weapons for
I'm
testing?
saying that we're going to test nuclear weapons like other countries do, yes.
But the only country that's testing nuclear weapons is North Korea. China and Russia are not.
No, Russia's testing
So
nuclear weapons.
my understanding
And
is
China's testing them too, you just don't know about it.
that would be certainly very newsworthy. My understanding is what Russia did recently was test essentially the delivery systems for nuclear weapons, essentially missiles, which we can do that, but not with nuclear
Russia's
warheads.
testing and China's testing, but they don't talk about it. You know, we're a open society. We're different. We talk about it. We have to talk about it because otherwise you people are going to report. They don't have reporters that are going to be writing about it. We do.
In the full interview posted online, President Trump is also heard talking about North Korea and Pakistan.
We're going to test because they test and others test, and certainly North Korea's been testing. Pakistan's been testing.
This is a dramatic reversal of US policy. The last US nuclear explosive test was in 1992. Nuclear non-proliferation specialists warned that such a move could undermine decades of arms control norms, including the framework around the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, which the US signed but never ratified. Now, it raises a number of questions. One, what kind of testing does President Trump mean? He does not clearly say the words explosive nuclear detonation. So what does he have in mind? Two, who will carry it out? President Trump names the Department of War, but historically it's the Department of Energy that oversees nuclear tests. 3. Where and when. President Trump skirts specifics. He does not specify a test site. He does not give a timetable either. And 4. Most importantly, what is his justification for wanting to resume nuclear testing? President Trump cites threats from Russia to buttress his argument in favor of resuming nuclear testing. But not all experts are convinced. What Russia did test, however, were a nuclear-capable cruise missile called the Burevestnik on 21st October and a nuclear-capable underwater drone or torpedo called the Poseidon on the 28th. The Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov says that this cannot in any way be interpreted as a nuclear test. He says, and I quote, "Regarding the tests of Poseidon and Burevestnik, we hope the information was conveyed correctly to President Trump." President Trump also claims that China is rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal and will catch up to the U.S. in 5 years. Now, he brings up the issue of Chinese activity at Lop Nor, a military base in the Xinjiang region of China's far west, when he speaks about the U.S. wanting to regain control of the Bagram base in Afghanistan.
We want that base back, but one of the reasons we want the base is, as you know, it's an hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons.
Beijing denies Trump's accusations. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson says China has faithfully observed its commitment to suspending nuclear tests. The Chinese official hopes that the U.S. side will earnestly fulfill its obligations under the CTBT and its commitment to suspending nuclear tests, take concrete actions to maintain the international nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation regime, and preserve global strategic balance and stability. Now, this mashup of statements, omissions, and claims by President Trump has left allies, adversaries, and even U.S. officials scrambling to interpret his intent. Matthew Bunn, a nuclear weapons expert at Harvard University in the U.S., tells CNN that every statement in President Trump's social media post is wrong. Bunn says it's not true the United States has the world's most nuclear weapons. It's not true that other states are carrying out nuclear tests. President Trump seems to think it's the Department of Defense that carries out nuclear tests. It's not. It's the Department of Energy, he says. Darrell G. Kimball, the executive director of the Arms Control Association, says Trump is misinformed and out of touch. Kimball says that the U.S. has no technical, military, or political justification for resuming nuclear explosive testing for the first time since 1992. Kimball goes on to say that Trump will trigger strong public opposition in Nevada from all U.S. allies, and it could trigger a chain reaction of nuclear testing by U.S. adversaries and blow apart the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. A former U.S. lawmaker, John Tierney, who now heads the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation, says it makes no sense from a strategic point of view for the United States. Tierney says one day he wants everyone to get rid of their nukes. The next day he wants to start testing. It's dangerous. Robert Floyd, the head of the Vienna-based Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, expresses alarm over President Trump's remarks. He says any explosive nuclear weapon test by any state would be harmful and destabilizing for global non-proliferation efforts and for international peace and security. A sitting U.S. lawmaker, Edward Markey, who co-chairs the Nuclear Weapons and Arms Control Working Group, says he wants to introduce legislation to prevent President Trump from restarting nuclear testing by stopping funding for it. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi describes the move as regressive and accuses the U.S. of acting like a nuclear-armed bully. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright has since clarified that the tests will not include actual detonations. Instead, they will involve all other parts of a nuclear weapon to ensure they can trigger an atomic explosion. But analysts warn of a potential spiral into a new arms race. The US-based Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists published a prescient article in February, barely a month after President Trump was inaugurated. It's titled, "Why It Would Be a Bad Idea for the Trump Administration to Conduct a Rapid Nuclear Test." It reads, "Restarting the US nuclear testing program could be one of the most consequential policy action the Trump administration undertakes. A US test could set off an uncontrolled chain of events with other countries possibly responding with their own nuclear tests, destabilizing global security and accelerating a new arms race." John Wolfthal, who advised both Joe Biden and Barack Obama on nuclear matters, says the world has returned to the arms race dynamics of the Cold War, where each side believes that nuclear weapons are important. He says Russia, the US and China are all investing tens of billions of dollars on new nuclear delivery platforms such as missiles, bombers and submarines. Remember, 4 of the 9 nuclear powers belong to the global south: India, Pakistan, China and North Korea. Now, Matthew Bunn of Harvard University tells CNN that if the US resumes nuclear testing, the country that would benefit the most would be China. The CNN article quotes a former US official as saying something similar, that the mere suggestion that the US may resume nuclear testing could give the green light to China to resume explosive testing, and the Chinese would benefit comparatively more than anyone else if testing resumed. There's no technical reason for the US to do this now, but for China, it could technically advance their capabilities. Let me close by talking to you about the film A House of Dynamite, which is trending on Netflix. It's garnered tens of millions of views already. The film is about an impending nuclear strike on the US. Who launched the missile? How did the US president respond to the threat? Did the world plunge into a nuclear war? The film doesn't answer any of these questions, and therefore it leaves the audience confused. And that is unsettling and gripping at once. The film lays bare the terror and uncertainty of a nuclear crisis and how nuclear proliferation is similar to living in a house of dynamite where a single spark could end everything. Knowing what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 and knowing the consequences of President Trump's nuclear rhetoric, the question we should be asking ourselves is this: are we living in a house of dynamite too, hoping that no one strikes a match?